My new wife sent a group message. I think it's best your kids step away for now. Her mom reacted with a thumbs up. I wrote back, understood. I'll respect that. And step away from the family fun too. That night, I closed my contribution. At 3:11 a.m., my phone started buzzing. 79 missed calls by sunrise. Her dad left a voicemail. What happened? The bank flagged everything. I just replied, I'm honoring your decision. That was before they realized everything else I had. At 9:14 p.m., my new wife sent a message to the family group chat we used for birthdays, holidays, school pickups, and the endless little emergencies that came with trying to blend two families into one. Ariana, I think it's best your kids step away for now. That was it. One sentence. No call. No private conversation. No attempt at dignity. Then her mother, Denise, reacted with a thumbs up. A bright little approval bubble. I stared at my phone so long the screen dimmed in my hand. My son had been the one to show me the message first, his face pale in that careful way teenagers get when they are trying not to look wounded in front of you. Dad, he'd said quietly from the kitchen doorway. Did I do something? My daughter was behind him, pretending to scroll on her phone, but her mouth had gone tight. She was 17 and had already mastered the art of acting like things didn't hurt when they did. I read the message again. I think it's best your kids step away for now. Not let's talk. Not we need a pause. Not even the decency to use their names. Your kids. Like they were a stain on a new couch. I typed back before I could overthink it. Me. Understood. I'll respect that and step away from the family fun too. I hit send. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared, then nothing. That night, after my kids went upstairs, I opened my laptop, signed into the trust portal, and closed my contribution. At 3:11 a.m., my phone started buzzing. By sunrise, I had 79 missed calls. Ariana, Denise, her father, Leonard, 2 of her brothers, her aunt, even her cousin, the one who barely looked up from his steak at family dinners unless someone mentioned money. At 6:42 a.m., Leonard left a voicemail. Saul, what happened? The bank flagged everything. I listened to it once while making coffee. Then I replied with 6 words. I'm honoring your decision. That was before they realized everything else I had done. My name is Saul. I'm 39, a cybersecurity analyst by profession. And for most of my adult life, I've made the same mistake in different clothes. I confused protecting people with carrying them. I used to think that was noble. Then I got married the second time. Ariana came into my life 2 years after a brutal divorce. My ex-wife and I had ended things without fireworks, but with plenty of ash. By the time the paperwork was signed, my son Micah was 15, my daughter Talia was 16, and both of them had already learned to scan adult faces before speaking, like they were checking weather patterns before stepping outside. I hated that. So when Ariana came along, all warm laughter and soft eyes and hands that found mine under restaurant tables, I let myself believe maybe life was finally circling back towards something gentler. She was beautiful in that polished way some people are. Everything about her looked intentional. Hair, nails, smile, even the pauses in her speech. She had a 10-year-old daughter, Bree, who was shy and observant. In the beginning, I tried hard with both of them. Movie nights, weekends out, careful respect. No rushing, no forcing. And Ariana made me feel seen in ways I hadn't for a long time. You're so steady, she told me once, curled against me on my couch while rain tapped against the windows. I've never had steady before. That landed harder than she probably meant it to. I build systems for a living. I investigate breaches, harden infrastructure, trace threats, and close vulnerabilities before they become disasters. Chaos makes my skin crawl. So hearing someone call me steady felt less like praise and more like purpose. Looking back, that should have been my first warning. People who want your steadiness often don't care what it costs you to provide it. Ariana's family liked me immediately, not because of my jokes, not because I was especially charming. I'm not. I'm the kind of man who reads privacy policies and actually enjoys it. I alphabetize spices. I use 2-factor authentication on everything, including apps that absolutely do not deserve that level of trust. I am not thrilling, but I had a good salary, no consumer debt, excellent credit, and the kind of face that made older relatives say things like, "He looks dependable." Leonard said that the first time we met. Denise squeezed my forearm and smiled. Dependable is rare. At first, it was little things. Leonard's pharmacy card had an issue, and I covered his prescription while we were out. Ariana's brother Damon was between jobs, and I paid for his daughter's asthma inhaler because insurance got messed up. Denise's condo association needed a special assessment she hadn't budgeted for. And Ariana asked me if I could help just this once, because her mother was already under so much stress. Every request came dressed in urgency and gratitude. Every thank you came with a story about family. I should explain the fund. It started 6 months before the wedding, after one of those expensive, theatrical family emergencies that reveal more than they solve. Leonard had been in a panic because Denise's condo was close to slipping into default after years of sloppy finances, revolving debt, and a son, Ariana's younger brother Paul, who had been borrowing from her and never paying it back. Everybody gathered at Ariana's parents' house, talking over each other, blaming the economy, the government, inflation, bad luck, cursed timing, anything but their own choices. I sat at the end of the table listening. Then I did what I always do when chaos shows up, pretending to be fate. I asked for numbers. No one had them. So I made them. I spent a whole Saturday sorting statements, bills, loan notices, past due letters, auto pay failures, and account screenshots that had been emailed, photographed, and half remembered. By midnight, I had a spreadsheet, a payment priority map, and 3 pages of recommendations. Denise cried. Leonard clasped my shoulder like I'd pulled him from a fire. Ariana kissed me and whispered, "You save people. That's just who you are." That was the moment the family fund was born. Officially, it was my idea. Technically, that was true. But the version I suggested and the version they lived off were 2 very different things. My plan was simple. A tightly monitored household reserve for genuine emergencies, medical gaps, utility shutoff prevention, school expenses for minors, temporary hardship support with documentation, and sunset limits. I created the structure through my attorney and financial planner, set up contribution tiers, attached rules, and used a third-party fiduciary interface so distributions had to be categorized and approved. I put in most of the money. By most, I mean 92%. Ariana contributed a symbolic amount twice, then started calling it our fund. Her brothers never contributed. Denise said she would once things stabilized. Leonard kept promising he'd sell an old boat that apparently existed in the same mythical realm as unicorns and tax refunds. Still, because I wanted harmony, I kept the machine running. Part of it was love. Part of it was ego, a dangerous cocktail. There is a specific kind of admiration people give you when you solve problems with money and structure. It feels like respect until the first time you say no. Then you find out what it really was. After the wedding, things changed faster than I expected. Ariana didn't become cruel overnight. That would have been easier to spot. Instead, she became managerial. My kids' visits were disruptive. Their shoes by the door made the entryway feel crowded. Talia's habit of keeping tea bags in the upstairs bathroom because she liked to make herbal tea late at night was territorial. Micah eating. Leftovers, without texting first in the family chat, was dismissive. The complaints were always absurd enough that if I repeated them out loud, I sounded dramatic. One night, after Talia had gone back to her mother's house early because Ariana snapped at her for using the good towels, I said, "You're being too hard on them." Ariana folded laundry with clipped little motions. "I'm asking for boundaries, Saul. They're kids. They're almost adults. And frankly, they act like this is still your old house. It is my house." She looked at me then. Really looked. Cool and expressionless. That's exactly the problem. I should have paid more attention to that sentence. Around the same time, the family fund became less emergency reserve and more bloodstream. Denise used it to bridge a bathroom remodel because the contractor had found mold. Leonard used it to catch up on business insurance for a side venture that was about to turn around. Damon needed help with daycare. Paul needed help with legal fees after a misunderstanding involving a leased truck and unpaid invoices. Every month, the requests got slicker. not desperate. Entitled. When I asked for receipts, I got size. When I requested documentation, Ariana told me I was making her family feel audited. I'm not auditing them, I said one evening. You literally built a dashboard. It's called accountability. It's called humiliating. I laughed at that, and it was a mistake, because her face hardened. You know, she said, for someone who claims to care so much about family, you can be incredibly transactional. Transactional, that word, sat in my chest like a stone. This, from a woman whose mother called me our blessing, right after I covered 6 months of her condo dues. I started noticing smaller things after that. Private conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Ariana muting her phone when she left it face up on the counter. Denise referring to my children as your first family, with a tiny wrinkle of distaste in her voice. Leonard making jokes about how cybersecurity must be nice because computers pay better than blood. Then came the dinner that broke whatever was left of my denial. It was a Sunday. Roast chicken, green beans, burnt rolls because Paul showed up late, and Denise forgot the oven timer. My kids were with me that weekend, and I had insisted they come because I was tired of them being treated like awkward guests in my own married life. Micah was polite. Talia was quieter than usual. Bree, Ariana's daughter, asked Talia about college applications, and for 10 brief minutes, the table almost felt normal. Then Damon made some comment about inheritance planning, laughing as he said, Saul's the only one here with enough assets to make that a fun conversation. Denise smiled. Leonard grunted approval. Ariana didn't correct him. Talia set down her fork. Micah looked at me. I felt it immediately. That shifting, ugly awareness kids get when adults are speaking around them as if they are furniture. So I said evenly, my estate planning is already handled. Damon raised his hands. Relax, man. We're joking. Ariana sipped wine. Nobody's attacking you. That's not what I said. Talia pushed back her chair. Can I be excused? There was a silence. Then Denise said, honestly, maybe it would be easier if the older kids weren't here for these family finance conversations. Older kids, not grandchildren, not Saul's children, not even their names. Ariana put her glass down and looked straight at me. I think it's best your kids step away for now. Not in the group chat this time. At the table, in front of everyone. Micah went rigid. Talia's face went white. I remember the scrape of my chair, the hum of the refrigerator, Bree staring into her lap, Leonard not saying a word. Denise nodding to herself like order had been restored. I got my kids out of there. Calmly. Because rage is a luxury when your children are watching you. We drove home in almost complete silence. At a red light, Talia said, you don't have to fix this for them anymore. I tightened my hands on the wheel. Micah looked out the window. They wanted us gone, Dad. Not just from dinner. From the picture. No part of me wanted to admit my 16-year-old son understood the room better than I had. That same night, Ariana sent the group message. Maybe she thought distance made her sound reasonable. Maybe she thought the family chat would lock in consensus before I could object. Maybe she thought I'd cave, apologize, negotiate, keep paying. Instead, I wrote back exactly once. Understood. I'll respect that. And step away from the family fun too. When Leonard's voicemail came in about the bank flagging everything, he still didn't understand. He thought I had thrown a tantrum. He didn't realize I had simply activated the protections I built months earlier. This is the part no one in Ariana's family appreciated about what I do for a living. I don't just create systems. I create contingencies. Every contribution I made to the fund ran through compliance triggers. Every beneficiary profile had verification requirements. Every emergency category had fraud controls. I had seen too many people weaponize vagueness. Too many families blur the line between need and access. So, quietly, I had written in conditions. Any material change in household composition, beneficiary eligibility, or exclusionary behavior affecting name dependents triggered a review. Repeated requests without substantiation triggered a hold. Evidence of coordinated misuse triggered a freeze pending audit. My kids were listed as protected dependents within my household trust architecture. Ariana had just put in writing that they should step away. Then her mother publicly approved it. By sunrise, the system had done exactly what I designed it to do. It flagged the contradiction. If my children were no longer welcome as part of the protected family structure, then Ariana's relatives were no longer eligible to draw from a fund tied to that structure. The distributions froze. Pending items stalled. Auto-pay bridges stopped. The revolving short-term liquidity they had been treating like oxygen vanished. And because Leonard had gotten comfortable using scheduled disbursements to float his business account, the sudden interruption bounced 2 linked obligations and triggered a bank compliance review, which is why he left that voicemail sounding like a man whose kitchen floor had just disappeared. The calls kept coming all morning. At 8:03, Denise texted, "This is extremely cruel." At 8:11, Damon, "Bro, this is just a misunderstanding." At 8:17, "Ariana, you embarrassed me in front of my family." That one actually made me laugh. At 8:29, Leonard called again. I answered this time. "What is going on?" he barked. "You tell me," I said. "The bank froze access. Denise's transfer didn't clear. My vendor payment got flagged. They said, there's some kind of review." "Review for what?" "For changed eligibility conditions." "What conditions?" "The ones tied to family membership and dependent inclusion." Silence. Then, more cautiously, "Saul, this isn't about the kids. It became about my kids the moment your daughter put them outside the family and your wife endorsed it." That's not what she meant. It's exactly what she wrote. He exhaled hard. "You're overreacting." "No," I said. "I'm honoring the structure." When I hung up, my hands were steady. That surprised me. I'm not a dramatic man by nature. I don't enjoy confrontation. But there is a strange peace in finally behaving in alignment with reality. Ariana came home just after noon. She didn't slam the door. She was too controlled for that. She stood in the kitchen in a cream blouse and gold earrings, looking immaculate and furious. "You need to reverse this." I kept typing for another few seconds, finished my email, and closed my laptop. "No." Her eyes widened, not because I'd refused, but because I'd done it without raising my voice. "You punished my entire family over one message. I responded to your decision. It was temporary. It was specific. You know what I meant. I know exactly what you meant." She laughed once, sharp and unbelieving. "So this is who you are. The moment someone challenges you, you pull money and call it principle?" I stood. "No. The moment someone tells my children they are disposable, I stop funding the room they set it in." Her face changed at that. Just a flicker. Not remorse, calculation. "You're twisting this. I brought my children into this marriage with honesty, with care, with patience. They have been polite, restrained, and more gracious than the adults around them. And you humiliated them anyway. They make Bree uncomfortable. Bree barely speaks in those dinners because your family talks over everyone. That's unfair." So was the message. She folded her arms. "My mother is in the middle of bills. My father has obligations. Damon has childcare. Paul is not my son." She recoiled like I'd struck her. "That's disgusting." "No. What's disgusting is how quickly all of you turned love into access." For the first time since I'd met her, Ariana had no graceful answer. Just color rising in her cheeks. Then she tried the oldest tactic in the world. Tears. "I married you because I trusted you," she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment. "No," I said quietly. "You married me because I made instability feel temporary." That landed. She left the room. By evening, Denise had shifted tactics. Her texts became softer. "We never meant to exclude anyone. Families say things in frustration. Please don't let pride hurt everybody." Pride. That word always shows up when people lose access to the person they were using. The real unraveling began 2 days later. My attorney called first, then my financial planner. Then the fiduciary manager tied to the fund. Once the audit process opened, details surfaced fast, because people who think money will always keep coming get sloppy. Denise had submitted duplicated invoices on 2 separate months. Leonard had routed business bridge disbursements through a personal account despite certifying otherwise. Paul's legal issue was not a misunderstanding. It was an unpaid contractor dispute tied to a vehicle repo. And Ariana, my steady, loving Ariana, had been forwarding internal summaries from the fund portal to her brother Damon, so the family could prepare me before certain reviews. Nothing criminal on its own. Enough to destroy trust altogether. That night, she came into my office pale, holding her phone. They're saying there's an audit. There is. Damon says the portal logs show shared access concerns. Yes. Her voice thinned. Saul, did you set all that up from the beginning? Yes. You were watching us? No, I said. I was protecting what I built. She stared at me as if seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. Or maybe she was seeing the version of me that should have existed much sooner. A week later, she moved into her mother's condo for space. That lasted 11 days. Then Denise called, sobbing, because Leonard's cash flow problems had become impossible to hide. The condo board was threatening action again. Damon was behind on daycare, and Paul had stopped answering his phone. Please, she said, voice shaking. We need to talk as a family. I almost told her I thought it was best they step away for now. Instead, I said, no. Ariana asked for a meeting in a public place. We sat across from each other in a quiet hotel cafe where nobody knew us. She looked tired, really tired, stripped of polish. I didn't think you'd go this far, she said. I stirred my coffee once. That was your first mistake. Her eyes filled. Do you even still love me? That question would have destroyed me once. I answered honestly, not in a way that can survive what you did to my children. She looked down. I was trying to make things smoother. For who? She had no answer, so I gave her the only one that mattered. Smoother is what people say when they mean easier for themselves. We separated quietly after that. No screaming. No cinematic collapse. Just papers, signatures, a few stunned mutual friends, and the slow administrative death of a marriage that had been rotting under perfect lighting. The surprising part wasn't that Ariana's family blamed me. The surprising part was how quickly they turned on each other once the fund was gone. Without me buffering the consequences, every weakness in their system surfaced at once. Denise blamed Leonard for the hidden transfers. Leonard blamed Damon and Paul for leaning too hard. Damon blamed Ariana for losing the only stable person in the circle. Paul vanished for almost a month. Bree ended up staying with her aunt for a while because the adults were too busy imploding to act like adults. And my kids, they exhaled. That's the word for it. Exhaled. Talia stopped avoiding weekends with me. She started leaving books around the house again as if reclaiming square footage. Micah no longer checked my face before speaking. One Friday night, he stood in the kitchen eating cereal straight from the box and said, "It feels normal here now." I had to look away for a second after that. Normal. Such a small word. Such a costly thing. Months later, I took the money I had once funneled into the family fund and did something radical with it. I kept it. I maxed out college accounts for my kids. I upgraded my security consultancy into a small firm. I finally took Talia to tour campuses without checking my phone every 10 minutes for someone else's emergency. I helped Micah build a custom PC, and when he thanked me, I didn't hear obligation in his voice. I heard trust. That's the difference. Obligation drains you. Trust returns something. Sometimes, people ask whether I regret answering Ariana's message the way I did, whether I escalated too fast, whether I could have saved the marriage by being more patient, more flexible, more forgiving. No, because patience without boundaries is just slow self-erasure, and flexibility in the wrong room becomes permission. I spent too many years believing love meant absorbing impact, covering gaps, being the firewall, taking the hit so everybody else could keep pretending their system worked. But even the best firewall has one non-negotiable rule. When the threat is inside the house, you isolate it. That night, when my new wife sent that message and her mother hit thumbs up, they thought they were removing an inconvenience. My children, what they were actually removing, was the reason I had ever tolerated any of them. So yes, at 3:11 a.m., their phones started buzzing. Their transfers stalled, their accounts got reviewed, their carefully padded lives began collapsing under the weight of truths I had quietly documented for months. And when Leonard demanded what happened, the bank flagged everything. I meant every word of my reply. I was honoring their decision. I stepped away from the fund, from the fiction, from every table where my children were expected to stand outside the circle and smile politely. I'm Saul. I'm a cybersecurity analyst. I know what happens when people mistake access for entitlement. You revoke credentials, and you do not apologize when the system gets safer the moment they're gone.